Yo, 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 what's good? It's me, your guy, all the way from Bedside Habbo, and here is another exciting episode of Habbo Draws the 90s. Now, I'm still trying to figure out how I want this to evolve, right? Because at first I was like, oh, let me just do a time lapse. And then I was like, oh, let me do a time lapse and talk about the history of the show. So I'm just like trying to figure out what works, what doesn't, and how I can make it all work and blend together. But you guys are amazing. Let me start that right there. Let me start right there with that. Y'all are amazing. I'm gonna tell you why. Wait. Before we get into this video, I need to let you know this is sponsored by my Patreon members over at patreon.com/habtoons. Patreon is really dope because it allows me to do my work and make YouTube content full time. And this is also a great place for you, the viewer, the fans, the members to connect with me on a deeper level where you get early access to new projects and exclusive projects that you won't see anywhere else. And there's a lot going on. I'm posting very frequently, more so here than any other platform. So if you want to check out what's going on and you want to support, head over to patreon.com/habtunes today and sign up now. Y'all came through with the comments, man. I loved every suggestion that I got. Now, if you're new here or maybe you need a refresher, Habbo Draws the 90s is a series that I started about maybe a month or two ago where I want to revisit and draw characters from our favorite shows from the 1990s. So right now what we're doing is every episode in the comment section below, you will tell me who you want to see next. And then on Patreon, my Patreon members will vote on who those characters will be. So my patrons voted and they said, you know what? We want to see Oggy and Porkchop. Oggy from Oggy and the Cockroaches and Porkchop from Doug. Now, I've never seen Oggy and the Cockroaches, so this was a brand new character to me. But Porkchop, we all know Porkchop. We know him. He been around. He ate at our table. He been here before. Now, someone has suggested that I should do like an hour-long deep dive video essay type thing. I don't know if I'm there yet, but I'll try my best to kind of get into the finer details of each of these cartoons, the people behind them, and why we love them so much. I'll also probably will play the time lapse while I'm talking instead of it just being at the tail end. I'm still not sure how I'm going to edit this. And also, I need to point out that I tried something a little different because I started streaming this this piece. So I was streaming it live on YouTube like literally yesterday because it's Friday. I streamed this live on YouTube yesterday and it was acting kind of weird. So there's one part that's going to be with my stream overlaid, and there's another part where it's going to be straight from like Photoshop. Now, if you do not like the digital aspect of it, like if you want to see my hand and the tablet and everything like in the previous two videos, let me know in the comment section below. If you wanted a mix of both or something like that, I can probably work that out at some point as well. But let me know what you think. Digital on screen or off screen with the hand, go type it right now, literally right now. You know, I was sitting here and I was thinking, why on earth did y'all choose Oggy and the Cockroaches? Because I know none of y'all ain't seen this. Most of my audience is American. What is this cartoon? Because I ain't never heard of it before. I ain't never seen it before. Then I realized this is a foreign show from a foreign childhood. The person that suggested it is not from here, and apparently this is a French cartoon. So Oggy and the Cockroaches was created by French animator Jean-Yves Rambeau. Also, like, I'm not an expert on pronouncing French names, so if I'm butchering that, you can be mad at me in the comments. Anyway, it was created by him and a guy named Olivier Jean-Marie who directed the show. We'll stick with Rambeau for now because he's the one that put everything together. Rambeau got his start at Deke Entertainment back in 1975, and if that sounds very familiar to you, the company name, it's because you most certainly watched at least 3 of their shows growing up. Like, seriously, I'm dead serious. Deke Entertainment had it locked down for animation in the 80s and 90s. We're talking Sonic the Hedgehog, Captain Planet, Inspector Gadget, hell, even the Mario and Zelda cartoons from back in the day. Rambeau would go on to work with Deke through the 90s and later Gaumont Multimedia, aka Gaumont Film Company, which produced the Highlander animated series F is for Family, which I believe still might be on Netflix, and our titular Oggy and the Cockroaches. Oggy and the Cockroaches was essentially about a blue cat with a big red nose who'd love to lounge around all day, but was always being harassed by 3 cockroaches named Joey, Marky, and Dee Dee. The series is akin to what we would see with Tom and Jerry, a hilariously slapstick, violent cartoon where the cat just can't have a nice day. I mean, come on, they even have a bulldog named Bob. They got a whole dog. I'd call this a beautiful homage. The show would go on for 7 seasons, broadcasting on France 3, Canal Plus Family, and the Gully Network. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but if I am butchering it, again, you can come at me in the comments. Apparently, this even aired on Nickelodeon at some point, and somehow I still missed that. It was a cult hit in Europe, spawning a film, a Game Boy Advance game, and not only a CG spin-off on Netflix, but even a reboot. Yes, a whole entire reboot called Oggy and the Cockroaches Next Generation. What is it, Star Wars? Both of these series would drop in 2021 and 2022 respectively. There was even a bit of controversy for this show. Back in 2015, a kid pointed out that the show had some exposed breasts on a woman that was on a poster in the background of an episode called The Unhappy Camper. Interestingly enough, though, it didn't get that big of a stink due to the fact that the time slot of the show airing was 3:30 p.m. Eastern time, when most school kids were either on their way home or still in after school. However, future airings of this episode were updated to replace the poster with a regular beach scene, so no more naked lady. Sorry guys. While Oggy and the Cockroaches did receive a fair amount of success, it was not seen by Jean-Yves Rambaud. Unfortunately, by the time the series was officially released, he had passed due to a battle with cancer. But I'm sure he would be extremely proud to see how far Oggy has come. I'm hoping that you are enjoying this before I switch over to talking about Doug, because this still was a bit of work, writing this script and researching just a few things here and there. I'm trying to get those video essay muscles toned up. Hey, so this is Editor Hap here, and I regret to inform you that there are some instances of the section coming up that will be a little wonky because the audio got corrupted. And unfortunately, I did not have enough time to re-edit all these segments, so I will put the transcribed script, or whatever you want to call it, in the description, or maybe the pinned comment, either or description. Just look for it there, so that way you can read along and not be like, oh, what the heck was he talking about? So yeah, sorry about that. I'll try to fix it and make sure that doesn't happen again for the next video, but thank you and I appreciate you. Bye, love you. You know the theme song. You know it. Do 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 do. You know Doug. Your parents know Doug. Your grandma knows Doug. Everybody knows Doug. We all know Doug. This was one of the shows that you ended up watching on Nickelodeon, because this was one of Nickelodeon's very first heavy hitters. Doug was created by Jim Jenkins, which sounds like a Scooby-Doo character, right? He was an animator. He worked in advertising, and he also worked on a handful of shows before Doug would become center stage, such as Pinwheel, which happened to be the very first show on Nickelodeon, at least the very first kids show. Isn't that crazy? Like, he literally worked on 2 shows that became the first of their kind. Published as a short story, I believe it was a short story, it might have been a full book, called Doug Got a New Pair of Shoes. But just about every major publishing company rejected it. This led to him creating an animated pilot called Doug Can't Dance, and this pilot would be sold off to Nickelodeon, and guess what? It tested higher than any other pilot on the network at the time. Jenkins would then create Jumbo Studios to produce the show, which premiered as the very first Nicktoon alongside Rugrats and Ren and Stimpy. Doug was mainly inspired by Jenkins's childhood in Virginia, and I would consider it somewhat autobiographical in that sense, but further reading, he mentions that it's more emotionally accurate to his childhood experiences than being fully autobiographical. But a lot of the show's characters were directly based on real folks from his hometown. The show revolved around Douglas "Doug" Funny, a big-head kid with an even bigger imagination, living with his family, his parents Theta and Phil, his sister Judy, and his dog Porkchop in Bluffington, Virginia. I'll put an asterisk next to that because It never specifies what state they're in specifically in the show, but like I said, as I consider it autobiographical and Jim saying it's emotionally accurate to childhood, it's Virginia. Let's be real, it's Virginia. Self-esteem, bullying, looking at you, Roger Klotz, and even the highs and lows of romantic and platonic relationships. All good stuff for a well-rounded kids show. A coming-of-age type of thing. Chill yet iconic music and Mr. Think. And the show was a smash hit for Nick. Well, at least for the first 4 seasons. Nickelodeon ran into some money issues, let's call it a budget freeze. That led them to decline renewing the show. Jenkins wanted to stay with Nickelodeon, but it wasn't going to shake that way. But guess what? That wouldn't be the end of Doug, because guess who came a-knocking to purchase it all? That's right, Mickey Mouse. Mickeymouse. Disney would acquire the animated series right after they purchased the ABC network. The House of Mouse would not only take on the show, but practically absorb Jumbo Pictures, Jenkins' production company, as well as purchasing the trademark to the show. And my artist brain is like, that sounds kind of gross, because if you know about how these companies work, they usually take all the rights from the creators and perpetually own that show and those characters, and it sucks. I mean, look at Mike Judge with King of the Hill and Beavis and Butthead, but that's a whole different story for a whole different day. Both the visual style and storytelling of the show, and you know what? I remember that all in real time, and I don't think I was a fan of Disney Doug, even as a kid. Not saying that I hated or anything, but it just didn't have that same, how do you call it, je ne sais quoi as Nickelodeon Doug. There was, of course, a feature film in 1999 titled Doug's First Movie, and I honestly don't even remember that either. And that's probably why Doug never got a second movie. Get it? Second? Okay, fine. They also made a Game Boy Color game a year later called Doug's Big Game, but I guess you would call that more of a Doug's Big Lame. No? Still nothing? All right, I'm sorry. Anyway, despite its initial success, Doug never truly reached the heights of its contemporaries from Nickelodeon. We're talking Rugrats and Ren and Stimpy. And the Disney era didn't quite hit for everyone. To this day, Disney still owns the entire series, the trademark and everything. They have it all, but they have no plans to revisit it, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. And you know what? I just realized there was a game that came out not too long ago. It was like a Nickelodeon version of Smash Brothers where they had all the Nicktoons in there. And I was sitting there wondering, why isn't Doug in this? Like, Skeeter would have been a dope playable character or an assist trophy or something. And it's like, boom, it's because Disney owns Doug. And I bet you Doug and them, they miss their Nicktoon family, man. That sucks. That truly does suck. But that's a little bit of history of both Oggy and the Cockroaches and Doug. We're going to get into this time lapse. I'm going to talk over what I was going for, what I was trying to do, and what we ended up with. So I hope you're enjoying this so far. Again, this is still like a really wild and interesting experience for me to sit here and have a script and have all this stuff put together for a seemingly long video that you wanted. You guys asked for this, y'all. That's what y'all did. And while we're here, tell me who you want to see in the comments below. Who's next? 90s cartoons only. Give me a pair or more characters that you would like to see. Okay, it don't have to be Nickelodeon, it don't have to be Cartoon Network, it don't have to be Disney. It could be any cartoon from the 90s. I will draw it, and my patrons will vote on who will be next. So let me know right now. Type it right now. Like literally right now. Just do it. Okay, thank you. I wanted to do something different because the first 2 drawings, they were inside. The characters were inside like a building or some sort of facility or whatever the case may be. And I was like, let's take them outside. And somehow I landed on this really weird like swamp setting. I don't know what was going on, but I'm starting off with Oggy here, who was actually really fun to draw, very easy to draw too. He's just very big, simple shapes, kind of goofy looking. And same thing with Porkchop in a sense. Porkchop feels more realistic, whereas Oggy definitely feels like he's not from here. Like when I look at Porkchop, I'm like, okay, this dog kind of makes sense a little bit. Kind of makes sense. Like he was really cool. Like he used to wear clothes. He used to play music. Like Porkchop he was out here. Also want to just make note that because of the way this thing is cropped, there are going to be moments where I will be still drawing, but you can't see it. I'm gonna try to figure out a way to make sure everybody can see like the full Photoshop screen. But I was going for here this plant monster because I was recently playing this game called Control. And that video is going to be out in October. You should check that out. It's a playthrough of this really amazing game on Xbox Series X. Control had these monsters in it called the mold, and the mold were essentially like these people that were infected by a plant-like mold fungal substance, and they all turned into these really nasty, grotesque monsters that shoot toxins at you. It was really wild. Kind of reminded me of the clickers from the Last of Us. Oh, and I had realized at one point when I was doing this live, I forgot to mention that too. I was doing this live and I forgot that I didn't hit the record button, so a lot of the rest of the line art segment didn't get recorded. But you could see it on the stream archive if you wanted to. But I changed some of the colors here because I wanted them. I didn't like Oggy's original fur tone or skin tone or whatever you want to call it. I wanted it to be a little bit more saturated, so I went for a richer blue. Same thing with the red, and you know I don't like white, so the eyes and the teeth are going to be yellow. And every time I talk about that, I always think about how there was somebody months ago that was like, do your characters have jaundice? I'm like, shut up. Jaundice. Oh man. But yeah, Oggy, I feel like I could probably get into this show. It's a strange, like I've seen some pictures. I haven't actually seen it yet, but it looks a little, I don't know. If I can find out where to watch it, I'll probably check out an episode or two. They're relatively short. I saw that they do like 11-minute episodes. As you can see, I redid Porkchop's body from the concept, and I was like, oh no, I don't like the way this looks, so I redid his fur color. So I went for the darker shade here, and then for his like underbelly or belly button, whatever you want to call it, I went for the lighter tone, but I didn't go for the exact same colors from the original, because sometimes those are not the accurate colors. But if you see like an image on the internet, it's usually not the same exact thing, because you know, it's like when you listen to music and you don't have the masters, it's going to be diluted in some way. So I'm still trying to figure out like color palette here for the fungal flower monster thing, the environment, and I wanted to do something warm, because the last two, like I said, I wanted to be different from the last two illustrations. The last two illustrations were not only inside of facilities or inside like ancient ruins, but they were also featuring cool colors, and I wanted to go for something a little bit more warm and toasty. So I stole an old color palette from an illustration series I did years ago called the Afro-Terrestrials, and one of the illustrations had this really nice shades of oranges and reds and whatnot. So I'm adding all these details here to make it look and feel a little bit more grotesque, and I do kind of like the juxtaposition of this super detailed freaky monster and these like really cutesy doofy looking cartoon characters, and there's Mimi in the back, because you know whenever I do fan art I have to put one of my hobgoblins in there. That's like my rule now. There's a reason for it, but I'm not going to get into it right now. So yeah, I'm going through and just trying to figure out like how do I want this to really pan out, because I wasn't funnily enough I wasn't feeling the orange that much, but I was just trying to go through and see like, okay, maybe if I finish coloring everything and zoom out, it's gonna look good. So I kept zooming out, I kept coloring different parts and whatnot, and I was like, I don't know. And then I went back in to add some details to the foreground, the rocks here, to give it a bit more character and, you know, life. I don't know what that thing is. That's like a fungal pod, maybe. I don't know. A lot of people ask artists all the time, like, what does this mean? What is this? And it's like, sometimes it's just a thing. Sometimes it's just a cool looking thing that we just wanted to do. No deep meaning behind it. That's the funny part. Like when you go to a museum, it's like the curators are like, oh yes, the artist was experiencing their blue period, and this is when they were very sad about the fact that oxtail prices were skyrocketing in 2023. More at 9. I don't know where that more at 9 came from. So I'm adding all the detail here, and I'm trying to like fix up the water to make it look more believable as well. It's one of those areas where I definitely want to improve. I think there's always room for improvement, even if you think you're good at something or you think you're like the best at something. There's always a chance. There's always opportunity to do better. But I would definitely say that I am way more advanced now than I have ever been in my career and in my skills. Like if you look at something from 2016 and look at something from 2023, you can see similarities, but you can also see the growth, you know. So again, just adding some more details here, going through and adding some Hobgoblin gems or BB gems if you are a fan or follower of the lore for Toons or the Haboverse. In this part, I was like, I want to show that this creature is like looking for them. Like I was trying to figure out a way to like visually showcase that. So I drew that like little foamy line that comes through, and then maybe it like kind of seems like it's filtering out with its spores or whatever. And I forgot to add spores. I wanted to add spores around it. Maybe I might edit the drawing later and re-upload it. Adding all the extra stuff now, like the highlights and the shading. I was going to do like a rim light, but it wasn't. I tried it and I wasn't feeling it, so I didn't add no rim light. But I did add some shading that I think came out really good and kind of shows what I was like going for. The rest of it I did on my own because I was getting a little like tired, and I was already like, I've been fighting USPS for like the whole week because they kept lying about my package and delivering it, and they didn't deliver it, and and it was hot. And anyway, here's the final illustration. You can see this now. By the time this video is up, you should be able to view it on my website. The link is in the description and the pinned comment below. But yeah, I had a lot of fun playing around with this. I had to change the color palette because I wasn't feeling it. And I think this one is way better than the orange. I think this came out significantly better. And I said that on stream too. I was like, yo, I'm going to end up changing the color palette. I'm going to end up changing the color palette. I'm going to end up changing the color palette. And then boom, I changed the color palette. So here's where we're at now. So in the comment section below, let me know what characters you would like to see next. Remember, you have to keep it 90s. You have to keep it 90s. We're going to do 10 of these. This is episode 3. So we're going to do some more. So if you didn't get your suggestion picked this time, you can suggest something another time. You keep going. We're going to do 10 episodes of these. So there's time. But anyway, I hope you like this. I hope you dig it. But until next time, stay rad, stay dope, stay gold. We out.